am back. Welcome back to another OSHA Compliance Help Show. I am doing the handheld mic thing again. My other mic is in the shop, so I'm going to use this one. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, go ahead and hit that in the chat box, in the comment box. Let me know if you can't hear me. I'll do one of these things just to see. Can you hear me? I'm actually getting some input on my mic, so it's showing that you can. At least it's leaving me. So I believe we're good. So I'm going to do a little further back. If you have questions or comments, let me know. We're going to go over OSHA record keeping a little for you. Not a whole bunch, but just enough so that you could get a good understanding of what's coming up right now for you. Because between now and I would say, well, February 1st, absolutely, because that's when you have to do your OSHA 300A summary logs. That's when those need to be posted in a place that is highly, highly, highly visited by people. And thank you, Lacey says that she can hear me. All right. So I'm glad you can hear me. Was it the pantomime? Was it like one of these things that helped you out there? So that's good. So she can hear me, and I am glad. So if you have any questions or comments regarding your OSHA compliance, my green screen just decided I'm done with you. That's the kind of day right here. Well, so now the green screen is gone, and oh well, I was in a refinery just a second ago, and look at this, travels really fast. Anyway, any OSHA record keeping, that's what I'm going to help you with today. I work with clients to help them understand what's recordable, what's not recordable, and truly, that's really what we're going to work on that one. It's a huge bike, isn't it? It's one of those snowballs. I honestly, I can't wait for my other mic to get fixed on my board. It's driving me nuts. It truly is. I even hate holding it, but it's worse. You can't hear me all the way down here. So there you go. And then I kind of messed up my shave today too, or yesterday. So maybe it's good point for a big mic because it's hiding that face. All right, so OSHA record keeping. Let's go. Let me help you guys out with that one. 19. When we're talking about CFR's Code of Federal Regulation, your record keeping is going to be 1904. So first, let's go to OSHA.gov, and you could do this with me. So if you're at your computer, you want to go to OSHA.gov, and then you want to look up the standards. And I'm going to share my screen real quick for you. I'm actually working one-handedly here, so let me do this. All right, you should be able to see my screen. I'm going to make it a little bit larger. So on the menu here, you could go through standards, laws and regulation. You want to click over on that one. And then when you get here, you'll start seeing the standards. So that's 1910, 1926, the 3 maritime, ag's got one book. But what you really want is this, the record keeping one. 1904 is the record keeping standard. I'm also going to show you something else that's going to help you with this one. I have to scroll out a little. So 1904 record keeping is, people like to think of it as magic only because there's so many people that don't understand the record keeping side, and it's okay. You don't have to understand everything. You just have to be able to know when you don't understand something, that you have to go back to 1904. So that means understand your limitations as opposed to have to understand the whole 1904 standard. It's broken down into very complex codes, but the heart of the standard is still the same, which is you as the employer has the responsibility of making sure your employees remain free from any injury or illness. And this just quantifies what will become a recordable illness or a recordable injury, so that now it is given to OSHA so that they could it truly boils down to this. OSHA is a government entity that is responsible for the safety and health of the American workers. So how they could justify their actual existence as an agency is by having some sort of record keeping that they will know we are doing incrementally better, incrementally worse, or what standards need to be in existence, what standards are good. We could actually go ahead and regulate another standard. That's what they're looking for. So these numbers that you're getting right now that you're probably going through as you finished up 2020, you're going to be reviewing all your entries. You're going to get a few things that's going to mean a lot to OSHA. After you decide this is recordable enough to have gone into my 300 log, then the next thing that you're going to end up doing is you're giving this information to OSHA if you're in certain categories. So let's show you the categories first. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to type in record keeping, and I'm working one-handed too, so because the mic, And again, if you do have any record keeping questions, this is a live Q&A, so I'm here to help you right now. Let's go ahead and get all that stuff in, and I want to really be a resource for you right now. So I'm going to help you do your job. There we go. So go ahead and pull all that stuff in. I got Jim. Jim is asking, how is COVID-19 recorded? So, look at that. Going right into it, Jim. You're even going to, COVID-19 straight to the jugular. COVID-19 is one of those things that OSHA will definitely report and ask you to report it. So on this page, you're actually seeing that. And there's a couple of different ways that OSHA is going to report that. So all I did right now, so you can follow along on your computer, is I typed in record keeping and I pulled up the OSHA record keeping page. I'm going to highlight this, copy it, put it in the chat box. So go ahead and check your chat box in a second. And as it's me chatting to you, it's going to populate in all the different places that is able to see me. Follow that link and you'll be where I am right now. So once you follow this link on record keeping, this blue box over here is really what you're asking, Jim, is how OSHA is going to regulate it. So once you click over here, it's going to boil down to a few things. And I'm going to go straight to the enforcement because the enforcement is going to tell you a lot about it right off the bat. So first enforcements is mostly respiratory protection. And then here's the guidance over here for how they're going to cite for record. Actually, this one, it looks like it's not in effect anymore. It's archived, but these two are in effect. So here's the revised enforcement, and it's still in effect for record keeping. I'm going to put this in the box as well. But what I'm going to... Jesus, good morning to you. Hopefully everything's going well with you. So check again your chat. I'm going to put in the page that you're seeing right now so that you could get to see the revised memo. So this is how they will enforce this. So to Jim's question, how are they going to enforce record keeping for COVID-19? First, it's going to have to follow the regular criteria for record keeping. Has the person experienced an injury or illness? That's the number one question you ask. If it is, then that doesn't mean it's recordable yet. I'll go to the next stage. The next stage is that this happened as a result to the person being exposed at work or in the working environment. If the answer is yes to that, then that's going to lead you to the second half. Did that worker now have any of the criteria that would lead to some medical treatment beyond first aid or a hospitalization? If that answer is yes, then that means you need to record this. So this goes back to contact tracing. If you could contact trace that there was exposure at work, then this person now becomes ill where they need something more than first aid treatment, so therefore a hospitalization of any type or a day's missed from work because of this illness. then that will become a recordable event. Loss of consciousness is another one of those things that would probably might be likely in the scenario. So that means once you find out, especially if it's a hospitalization, then you need to first, in a hospitalization state, you need to notify OSHA within 24 hours. 48 hours for, no, 24 hours for that one. And then if it wasn't where the person was hospitalized but they missed a day of work, then you're just going to put that down as recordable. That means that you know for sure that this person's ill enough to miss a day of work, and that this came from an actual person that was at the workplace or an activity or something similar to that, especially if you have people who aren't on your physical site that need to go out and do some service work or something similar to that. If they contract the disease and now they have something beyond first aid that happens to them, or they miss a day, then now it becomes a recordable event, and therefore that needs to go into your 300 log. If it's not, and OSHA finds out, and how does OSHA find out? That's the next question. I know your mind. How is they going to find out? Well, this is how they find out. They find out several ways, but the primary way is once they go ahead and you're supposed to record this stuff depending on what industry you're in. You'll have to submit your 300A summary form. If that information isn't in there, and now you have some sort of regulation, some sort of compliance enforcement, one of the very first thing OSHA does in an opening conference is they look over your 300 log. They need to do that because they want to see what kind of injury and illnesses you're getting. That's going to dictate where they're going to walk through your facility and what kind of walkthrough you're going to get. And it also helps them understand a few things about how often you have injuries and what's the location. Is it at your loading dock that has frequent injuries, or is it a bunch of injuries because of ergonomic issues? That's what they're getting from that 300 log, and that is one way they'll find you. The second way is if this now goes into litigation and the attorney asks for information regarding, what happened to my client, okay, that's another way that they're going to find you. And then there's complaints. You can have complaints from other people that says, hey, we know something that that was not being recorded or reported, and now they lead OSHA to you. So that is other ways that they'll find you. So that's the COVID thing. Hopefully I explained it okay for you, Jim. So let me know in the chat, in the comment box, if I covered what you were thinking. If not, then you have something more specific that you want to know. Go ahead and type that in right now, and I'll work on that as well. So we cover that area. That's a big one. And everything that I just told you from the form that I put into the chat box, you'll be able to download that, and you can see specifically the guidance that OSHA has to their compliance officers. This is a guidance for the COSHOs. So OSHA gives this to them. They review that memorandum, and now this is how they're going to go out and regulate. So you have that now. Just follow that link in the chat, and now you're going to know how OSHA is going to regulate you for record keeping regarding COVID-19. So that's a help, if you will. So I'm going to go back on my screen a little, get back to the record keeping. And again, if you have any live questions on OSHA record keeping, I'm going to answer those while I'm here for you. And then anything else I'm good for. So let's go ahead and give you just the basics of who needs to record. I remember talking about this a little bit earlier, probably a week or two ago. Well, probably the week before Christmas, I would imagine. The recordability is truly amazing when OSHA talks about high versus low risk people that need to record. So I'm going to show you my screen right here. There's an Appendix A in Subpart B of 1904. 1904 is the record keeping. In that little appendix, It's if you're looking at the CFR, it's going to be on your page where you see the subpart B. On the very bottom of the page, you're going to see a little box, and then when you turn that page in your CFR, it's going to continue on the other side. These are industries that are typically low in their days away restricted transfer rates, DART rates. To calculate that rate is the number of instances where someone either had a day off, doctor said they need a restriction, where they could work in 6 hours as opposed to 8 hours because the doctor says they can't work a full day, or they should be able to lift 30 pounds, but the doctor says they can only lift 15 pounds. All right, now they got a restriction. Or you have a case where they were transferred, meaning they're supposed to be in the field, but we're going to have to keep them in the office because they can't do the activity of the field. You count those cases up, not the days missed, not the days transferred, those cases themselves. Count them up, multiply it by the factor, was this a constant 200,000? That represents 100 workers. So if you got one worker full time, that's 2,080 hours in a year. OSHA's saying you give them 2 weeks off in the year for vacation, or somehow 2 weeks is missed throughout vacation. They're working 2,000 hours for that year. You get 100 workers working 2,000 hours. That's the constant. So the numerator of this formula is going to be the number of actual cases that are days away, restriction or transfer, times the constant 200,000 divided by your man hours. That's going to give you the rates. Same thing with total recordable injury rates. The event times 200,000, the constant divided by your man hours. So those are the things that will go into that number. This chart that you guys are seeing, their DART rate is lower than the national average. So much lower that OSHA says they don't need to record any injuries or illnesses regardless of company size. And that's partial. They do need to record any injuries and illnesses if there is a something that someone has to go to the hospital beyond first aid, fatality, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics or OSHA says, all right, we need you to record your issues, and it's usually because of your North American Industry Classification System Code, NAICS. That code is going to, when OSHA sees a little trend, a spike up in certain codes, they want to see why is this happening. So they'll go into more detail. And Bureau of Labor Statistics, same thing. They'll grab certain codes and say, all right, this year we're going to look at these codes. And if we see an uptick in injuries or illnesses, then they may be taken off of that exempt sheet. So any of those industries that I showed you guys, and you know where to find it now, if you're in those industries, you're exempt from record keeping regardless of size, partially. If you're not exempt from record keeping, there's another category that you need to know, which is coming up soon. Because right now, you're collecting all that data, and you're making sure that your 300-day summary log is ready for February 1st. That summary log needs to be posted in an area that everyone could see. If it's a gathering area such as a break room, or maybe it's a populated area where you have your communication board where people can see your right to know laws and everything else, and your workers' comp posters. Some people put that up there too. February 1st is where you're supposed to put that stuff, and it keeps up there until the end of April. And you don't have to keep it up there any longer than that. And then also, if you're requested to keep injury and illnesses records, it's usually for just 1 year. So that means that you don't have to keep sending OSHA and Bureau of Labor Statistics every single year after that your injury logs. Just do it for a year. Then that's going to be stated in the letter. So go ahead and follow that. Don't keep sending it to them. I had a client that did that once, and I was like, all right, we're going to stop that immediately. We don't need to do that. All right, I'm going to take off the green screen that was supposed to be there, and now all of a sudden it's not. That one, they are not working, so I'm just going to shut them down. Any comments or questions, just go ahead and again populate that in the box for me. So hopefully I got your question there, Jim. That first of all, the COVID-19, how's that reported? And now I went over who's exempt. Let's show you who are special entities, special companies that actually need to submit electronic OSHA record keeping. So there's only certain entities that need to do this. So I'm going to take you to the OSHA tracking injury tracking application. And that tracking application is one of the reasons why I decided I need to talk to you guys now about it, because you're probably going to be thinking more compliance for this, just to keep yourself, on task with this. So who needs to electronically submit your records to OSHA? That's these people here, establishments that's with 250 or more employees. They need to include their records. So if you're a large company, you're not on that exempt list in Appendix A of Subpart B in 1904, then 250 or more, automatically you're going to have to do a 300A summary to OSHA every year electronically. Smaller companies, 20 to 249, these, if you're in these industries here, and I'm going to copy this, I'm going to put this in the chat for you so you can see this as well. So you're going to see the chat box populate. This is going to be if you are in this industry over here, or in any of the industries listed in this box. You now need to, and your size, your company size is 20 people to 249. You now need to submit electronically a 300A form. So agriculture, forestry, construction, manufacturing, you gotta scroll all that stuff down so you can see exactly who needs to submit. Small companies now have to submit their 300 logs because of that. So this is the other compliance tip, if you want to put it that way, that you should make sure you understand if you fall on that NAICS codes. That's the code that is so important to you. I've probably mentioned that code maybe in every video by now, so you should know it is one of the most important codes for you to understand. So let's go into the other aspect of this. State plans do take precedent over the federal plan. So if you're under an OSHA state plan, then you're going to submit everything to the state. So I'll say here as well, federal agencies do not report their injury and illness through this. There's a federal agency tracking. So that's another entity there. Let's go over here. So I'm going to look right over here. March 2nd, 2021 is the deadline for electronic reporting. So that means for the calendar year of 2020, now OSHA is going to start collecting all that information. So currently right now, this is active form. So you could actually start updating this information. This tells you how to access it and create your login and all that stuff. Regular login information that you need. That's all in there. They are now collecting, though, employee identification numbers. So this is going to help them track a little bit better, not only your NAICS codes, but then it's also going to help them find you, is really what it boils down to. The aftermath of this, once you start including all this information, is if you have 3 years in a row that you're starting to increase with injuries and illnesses, you start, boosting up more and more and more. That means your DART rate's going up, your total recordable injury rate's going up. OSHA now is going to put you in a special category to be inspected. So that's one of the reasons that came out of this whole electronic record keeping, is just to help OSHA say, how do I how do we as an agency get our resources to really focus in on people who need regulation versus everybody that is in under OSHA. So that's what they're doing. So I would really make sure that you are trying to get your OSHA logs correct and not putting in the wrong information. And then secondly, if it are a lot of injuries and illnesses, find the root cause, and then let's deal with those things. So here's how you would do all this stuff. So I showed you that, and I gave you the timeline. So that is the injury and illness over here. On the very top will lead you to that application. So I'm going to go back again. If you have any questions or comments on any of the record keeping stuff, go ahead and put it in the chat box. I'm going to answer your questions. If you don't know if something's recordable and you need a second opinion, go ahead and put that in as well, and I'll help you. I'm going to paste in the chat box. Actually, I did this one already. What I will put your attention to is on the very right column, you're going to see a training module here and a training presentation. These two are great because OSHA is going to help you go through the knowledge of 1904, and then after that, it's going to help you be familiar with what's recordable, what's not. Then the other thing I would suggest is for you to look through these letters of interpretations and the Q&As. Letter of interpretations is someone writes OSHA and says, I don't understand this rule. Help me out a little. Give me a little bit of a understanding of what you meant by this. And then someone in OSHA is going to go ahead and write them back. Once they do, they keep that in the files. They can't regulate towards a letter of interpretation, but it's a standard that they're interpreting into plain terms, so they'll regulate on the standard. This one is just a wealth of questions and answers, and I would say if there's a record keeping question that you had or have, unless it's new with the electronic record keeping, chances are it's been answered before, and this is the one that you should be looking at. So I'm going to also put this in the chat box for you so that you could have access to it. And if you have any questions or comments related to record keeping, let me know right now, because I've been trying to keep these things right around the half hour mark, and I'm getting right to that half hour there. So I'm making myself available to you. So if you do have the questions, comments, let me know before I end the broadcast. Thanks everyone for the comments so far. That's been pretty cool. I was grateful to help you guys out. 1904 can be tricky, so here's one of the things I would say to really help you decide, is this recordable or not? First, you really need to determine, what was this person doing anything in the interest of the employer when they got injured or sick? If the answer is yes, chances are that's going to be a recordable event. Second question that's very common that you'll need to answer to see if it's recordable or not is, was this individual injured or got sick during their working hours? So if it was within their hours of working and they were there as a condition of their employment, chances are it's recordable. This interested employer where they got injured in within the working hours, chances are it's recordable. The other thing is, to make it not recordable is, were they doing something that was not in the interest of the employer, and they weren't here, meaning for work, because they had to. So those are some of those people that they come to work and they're like, I'll come in early, just hang out and see what happens, or I'll stay a little late and chat with my buddies, and if something happens there, just because they're at work doesn't mean it's recordable. So that's what that really boils down to. All right. Any more questions? All right, good deal. Well, Lacey, thank you, and it is a huge mic. So, Jim, thank you for your question as well. Jesus, thank you for your question. If you have any more, then go ahead and you could get me on LinkedIn. So just linkedin.com /in /Sheldon Primus. You could also reach me on Sheldon at sheldonprimus.com. So I truly appreciate everyone chipping in today and helping me out. So listen to the podcast. I forgot about that one. So if you have not heard the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, go ahead and type in Safety Consultant with Sheldon Primus, and that's going to lead you to my podcast. So thanks a lot. Please listen to that one. I would also tell you to go visit, if you want to be a safety consultant. Not everybody wants to be a safety consultant, but go visit safetyconsultant.tv. I've got something brewing there. I didn't officially launch it yet, but you guys, since you're hanging out with me, I'm going to tell you that it is live. So just go ahead and look at safetyconsultant.tv. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending a little time with me. All right. Go get 'em.